It's been a year since the release of Hogwarts Legacy. I wanted the dust to settle before I lumped all my thoughts together on the game. Okay, the dust probably has already eroded at this point, but better late than never. It is a game that made huge splashes in 2023, for better or worse. But I just want to focus on the game part and my verdict on that. And the words that come to mind are two halves. So why do I feel so divided about one of the best-selling, well-received games of the last year? Let's start at the beginning of our Hogwarts adventure and look at all the moving parts. Avalanche Software have been in the game since the 90s. Initially, they assisted in making versions of video games made by Midway, such as the MK trilogy on PlayStation 1 and an arcade sport favorite of mine in NFL Blitz 2000 for the Dreamcast. A few years on, they would start making licensed games for Disney and Pixar with Chicken Little, Cars, and Meet the Robinsons being under their belt. Side note, they automatically are one of my favorite developers ever for that Cars game. That is forever goated. They also made the Disney Infinity games before being closed by the giant before being reopened by Warner Brothers. By this point, they had a knack for making licensed video games that are video games based off of movies. This made them a unique asset to have for franchises that wanted to try out gaming as a medium, since the 90s and the 2000s were notorious for having poor video game adaptations of films. But that is a video for an entire other day. There is not much that I can say that has not already been said about the Harry Potter franchise. It started off as books in the 90s, it became a juggernaut of fantasy and children's writing, and naturally, films of the books would soon appear, raking in a monopoly commercially. Video game adaptations would soon follow, both making a game for each book, but also a Lego version. These were also well adapted, apart from perhaps the Deathly Hallows games, and captured the essence of what a licensed video game should be, sticking faithfully to the source material, but forging your own identity in gameplay that blends well with the narrative, or creating your own narrative if it permits you in the franchise. Avalanche Software understood this as well, given their time creating adaptations under Disney. They had time to master their craft. After 2013, the Harry Potter adaptations in any format were also over, and subsequently, the franchise stood still. Fans grew hungry for something. Anything. Okay, maybe not anything. But 10 years in video games years is a long time, like multiple console and CPU generations long. It would not be until 2020 that we would get the announcement of a new game set around this wizarding world that would charm and capture a new young audience and bring back old fans. Then in February 2023, Hogwarts Legacy was released, and it caught fire. Selling 22 million units and becoming one of the most concurrently played games of all time on Steam, it was clear that the fans were ready to go on another fantasy adventure. Do you remember that first time you opened a Harry Potter book and got drawn into the wizarding world? The characters that felt alive, the charm of Hogwarts made you feel like you were there, among all the moving staircases, the corridors, and the raucous atmosphere of the Great Hall? The games had cast a similar spellbinding feel on me once I started it up and was transported back there where the books took me all those years ago. The craziness of never just arriving at Hogwarts normally, and upon entering doors, marveling at the sights beholden to me, the House Common Room, where so much growth, plotting, and conversation took place. Every detail in the school had been minutely crafted with lots to discover and interact with, and with plenty of nods to the movies and books. This extended to well beyond the castle walls, going into places such as the Forbidden Forest, Hogsmeade, and other sleepy towns scattered across the countryside. It truly felt that I was being transported back to being a child, where I'd laid at my bedside and my mother would read me the Harry Potter books. I often found myself lengthily discussing what I had found in the game with Sid Crackers, a huge Potterhead. Despite myself not having read the books in years, I often could recall lots of details from memory invoked once I started a Hogwarts Legacy session. So much so that I even dedicated a bunch of videos to it. From the gameplay standpoint, everything felt smooth and tidy as well. The spells list had all the familiar ones of the other games, and the combat felt more focused and sharper than ever before, with a nice variety of fighting against dark wizards who could either summon powerful forces or animagi, to fighting goblin kind and even beasts. It was a bit disappointing to not have Quidditch included in a modern game, but that was partially made up for by allowing us to travel on the broom or by hippogriff through the entire map. I barely used the flue powder stations and often found myself soaring over the green hills on my trusty Nimbus. There were also fun pastimes such as decorating the Room of Requirement or catching animals in your magic bag to save them from poachers and transport to a paradise. All in all, it felt like the perfect game for fans and gamers to reintroduce themselves to Hogwarts and rekindle their love for the franchise. I could not wait to sink some time into the game. And then I did sink my time into it. And while the details and world were still mesmerizing, that was only on the surface. Deeper, there was just not much substance to the game in terms of the narrative and the gameplay. Avalanche Studios had done a fantastic job remaining faithful to the source material of this wizarding world, but it left one part in that we could have done without: the Chosen One. Having an entire franchise built upon the saga of the boy who lived and seeing him finally vanquish Voldemort after a 7-book, 7-year thriller. Doing a similar story where we are a new student that can see ancient magic and that we must save the wizarding world from a great evil descending upon them just felt watered down. Aside from the lovely exploring and the other things you can do in the game, the main content also suffers because of this narrative. Sure, it was interesting exploring the dungeons of the ancient magic the first time around, solving intricate puzzles and battling fearsome sentinels, but doing that repeatedly gave into the law of diminishing returns. And besides the intriguing story of Sebastian Sallow and his desperation to use dark magic to save Anne, the side quests and companion quests are also very shallow in this game, usually boiling down to either a fetch quest for a rare or lost item, or killing a few dark wizards that are poaching or harassing the public. As for the gameplay itself, while some aspects are to be applauded, such as the travel by broom, great animations, interactions with beasts, and polished technical parts, the core of the game still felt off. This was billed as an RPG game, which seemed like the natural choice. It gives the player an agency to choose their own witch or wizard for the first time, customizing their look, gear, and what house they get sorted into. But besides your appearance and a uniquely styled common and dorm room, there is nothing else that really changes or has an effect depending on your choices here. It's an unfortunately common theme in this game, where dialogue choices, good and evil choices in side quests, and the main plot, and even using the unforgivable curses, have absolutely no effect.
Of course he will.
It's a cardinal sin for RPGs to commit, because what's worse than not having a choice in how an RPG story plays out? Having the illusion of a choice. But perhaps the most egregious gripe I had of all of this is with Hogwarts. And you might be confused because I had just praised Hogwarts for being a minutely crafted, welcome sight to return us to the beloved franchise. And that part is completely true. But why on earth would you then spend most of the story away from your minutely crafted castle? It's all a facade, a cruel trick played on us by the developers. Sure, you get to tour the grounds and floors a bit as you are slowly introduced to the mechanics of the game, but these will be one of the only times you see these corridors, unless you roam there freely without focusing on the main content. The same can be said about the classes. You attend them once, but that is just to meet the professors or have a chat with a companion. This is in direct contrast with the books and the movies and some of the old video games, where despite having a crazy threat of Voldemort usually culminating on some grand stage like in Chambers of Secrets or in that Goblin of Fire weird pits of doom thing. A lot of the action takes place, well, during school. Except for the Half-Blood Prince and the Deathly Hallows, the core premise of Harry Potter was him balancing protecting the world because of his prophecy and getting through the school year. In Hogwarts Legacy, the school just feels like a means to an end, rather than part of your daily life. An ironic Avada Kedavra to the source material it's so loyally followed. And you know what? I lied about the Quidditch. How can you make a modern game set in the Harry Potter world and not even include one of the most exciting parts of the books? I cannot even. This video was a hybrid of my Doing Things Right and How to Fix series that I had done before, just resembling how split down the middle the game made me feel once all was said and done. It had done so much right, crafting the most accurate representation of Hogwarts and giving the player the freedom of their house choice, stylized by a beautiful common and dorm room. The ability to fly off the broom or hippogriff as means of travel just captures the magic of it all, and the variety in combat and other pastimes was something that I enjoyed doing. And Professor Garlic, ho ho ho! It had gotten so much wrong in that I only wanted to do the side content and hobbies as I was so disinterested in the main story. It added RPG elements without creating an actual RPG game. It took its greatest asset and shoved it to the side. And Professor Fig. Mm, I would really have liked a game where we experienced the school year as a school year. Where, like the older games that implemented, there would be consequences for our actions if we break the school rules, like sneaking around at night. Where we had house points and Quidditch implemented that actually accumulated during the year. A game that had a gameplay loop around Hogwarts and rather outside it, like what Bully perfected. Mind you, this game revolves around the fifth year. And of all the fifth years, what they do in fifth year? They start with their owls. Imagine that as a core mechanic where you start to study for your owls and be prepared for them before you can complete the actual main quest. I would have also preferred to play multiple characters rather than one. Imagine being able to play as Sebastian Sallow and having the tough choices of trying to use the evils of Salazar Slytherin and his scriptorium to save your sister, or would you find a nobler way? Or of Natsai Onai that tried to purge the dark wizardry she had discovered, while at the same time trying to impress her mother, who's also the divination teacher. Add a strong Hufflepuff and a strong Ravenclaw student, and we could have a quartet of interlacing stories, all converging on a face-off with Ranrock, where depending on who you were playing at critical points in the game, maybe things turn out differently, just like an RPG. Ultimately, I still believe that the game did well. It is no surprise to me that it had sky-high sales, surpassing even that of the Call of Duty game, a feat which should not be undermined. I genuinely do applaud Avalanche Software for their efforts in their faithful recreation of a franchise that so many adored and which probably had immense pressure had things gone wrong. I do think that in the end, this game had met all expectations, but I don't think that the game had reached its full potential. But that is just me. I don't know if any of you have felt the same in playing it and having all these thoughts. But yeah, I mean, I've had a few of those PS2 Harry Potter games that I used to loan from Mr. Video, for those of you who can recall that. And I gotta say, in terms of a gameplay loop, those games still played better for me. It's weird, really. I don't know where things went wrong. Like, I know I told you now where things went wrong. I can't understand why in QA and stuff this wasn't followed up. But I know they're probably working on another Hogwarts Legacy project, so maybe that gets a little bit rectified. Maybe we get a little bit more of an RPG game or better gameplay loop revolved around the school. Who knows? But yeah, I thought I would share my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think. Are you guys more of the opinion of what a lot of people are thinking, that it's a very well received game, that it deserves its roses and everything like that, and well, it was just a great game for you, or were you a little bit more disappointed, perhaps like I was, in expecting more or expecting something different? We're all here to share, and I think now that, as I said, the game's been out for a while, I think we can all reflect back on it and look back in hindsight and all that. But again, that was just me. I thought I would throw all my thoughts out there for this video, as always. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed having a little listen. And if you enjoyed this video, consider checking out all of my other reviews I've done on other games before. But until the next one, I hope you guys stay safe and have a lovely day, and we'll chat soon.